What is something you know but you're not supposed to know? That not married to my dad, mother enjoys threesomes. She's not the most tech-savvy person in the world and accidentally posted a threesome request publicly on Facebook. That my mother slept with several of the men in the neighborhood during the time my dad was very ill and literally dying. I am about to graduate college. My parents were teasing me about setting me up on a date with a guy with black hair whose name starts with an M. I was irritated and kept asking for more details but wasn't given any. Yesterday, I was social media stalking one of my cousins and saw she posted a video of a cute black puppy named Max of the breed my dog growing up was that passed away while I was at college. I had been planning on getting one later this year. After thinking a while about why my cousin would get a dog exactly like the one I really wanted, I remembered what my parents said about setting me up with a guy with black hair and a name starting with M. I went back to the video and sure enough, it was recorded in my parents' living room. Guys, I'm pretty sure I'm getting a puppy next weekend. I actually feel really guilty for finding out. A family member is HIV positive, doesn't want rest of family to know. When he broke down and told my mom, I overheard. She has passed and he has no idea. I know. You might want to let him know that you know. Sounds like he could use the support. Only if you're going to be supportive, but I'm assuming you would because you haven't told everybody else yet. I was accidentally given access to all salaries for a large hospital. Finding out some doctors made $80K and others $800K was pretty eye-opening. My great-grandparents were also brother and sister. I don't want to believe it but I totally do. My mom told me of a couple in her hometown who later found out they were siblings. They had somehow been separated at a very young age during WW2 and met again when they were older, not knowing they were siblings. Somehow it was figured out after they'd had a few kids. Spent a day getting drunk with my father, who I'm not that close with and hasn't really been involved in my life much even though he lives one street away from me. Found out that the true reason that my parents split when I was 2 years old was due to my mother sleeping with my father's brother while my father was in prison. Also learned that my father used to beat my mother. They both used to do drugs and shady shit, and also learned that my father had the chance to have joint custody of me, but he didn't bother going to the several court dates that were made to settle the matter. The last one hurt the most to learn. You can learn a lot of secrets when you get people drunk, but some things should just be left buried. My dad killed himself almost 20 years ago. At the time my mom told me it was because he was having gay affairs with people and he couldn't live in that sinful lifestyle anymore. Turns out she cheated on him, and that was what sent him over the edge. I only know this because I was finally able to read a copy of his note last year. My supervisor is really close to getting fired. Upper management isn't supposed to talk about it, but they do. Probably because we'd all quit if we thought she was staying. She sucks. That my mom tried to have CPS take my daughter from me when she was born by claiming I used drugs while I was pregnant. I was 9 years clean. She tried again when I was diagnosed with cancer. You would be amazed to see what doctors actually put in your medical records. My mom long-term replaced my dad's cancer pain pills with Tylenol to fuel her drug problem. I didn't discover this till after he died and just 2 months later she died from overdose. My dad has been growing some apparently fantastic weed for over 50 years now. That's how he made car payments when he was unemployed for a few years, even though he could have worked but didn't. He's got a lot of nice things that are above his employment level. Didn't register why until mom told us who used to be her supplier when she was in her hippie days. Last I checked, years ago, he had the trust of numerous private landowners and the keys to the gates. They let him build and maintain feedlots for deer and turkey, so he can have his own private hunting land and be out on his own, but I'm pretty sure I know how he pays and is paid now. Real country. This place fenced off gates to roads you have to go on foot through thick foliage to get around the gate that's blocking the only road in. Good 10 miles from the nearest police station, some of those plots as close as he is to the sheriff. I'm pretty sure he gets passes from the law for various reasons. My dad, this boring loner who's never been in trouble in his life, a real square who married a free love hippie, a weed outlaw. How my parents met. Mom was a stripper and dad just happened to go there. That my dad wrote several suicide notes. The restaurant I worked at had some pretty solid sweet potato fries. They come frozen in a bag. Everyone thinks we make it in-house. That my uncle's son is not his son. His then wife was banging her cousin and boom, baby. To this day, my cousin doesn't know and treats his dad, who raised him, as if he were his own and had never said a word about it to anyone but me, like shit because of the lies his mother spread about him. I kind of want to tell him to do a DNA test so that he'll know, and maybe, just maybe, realize his mother isn't the saint she made herself out to be. Edited to add, he knows his son isn't his because he is completely infertile. That when my mother was pregnant, teenage pregnancy, with me, she drank and did drugs because she never wanted to be pregnant with me, and was planning on leaving my dad, which she did a year after she had me. She went to an abortion clinic but couldn't go through with it. She doesn't know I know, and I will never tell her I know. I didn't find out until well into my adulthood and hold no hate for her. Regardless of what she did when she was young, she raised me the best she could and gave me and my older sibling everything she could and was a hard-working mom. HR1 sent me a list of wages for everyone in my department right up to the VP. It included my boss's boss, etc. At first glance, it looked harmless, but they had only filtered the list by job title so I wouldn't see anyone above me. I told my boss, and I'm pretty sure the person who sent it just got a do Excel better next time talk. That in 3 weeks, a BuzzFeed article is going to pop up in my newsfeed. 24 people share the secret they weren't supposed to find out. My dad had cancer. The family thought I didn't need to know that since I was in college. My mom had a child out of wedlock and gave him up for adoption. This was the early 70s. That my mom and dad love my nephew who lives with us more than me. How do I know that? I heard them talking in bed. Edit. To anyone wondering, I don't really care. It doesn't affect me in any way and I'm used to it. I have good grades, friends, and I'm happy. So, yeah. Just tonight, my friend who I haven't seen in a long time invited me to get drinks after work, then canceled because she was too tired. I found the photos a few minutes ago of her and some mutual friends out for drinks. So apparently I wasn't invited and she found a better option. She didn't realize I'd see the pictures. Just found out from my mom. My boyfriend's mom used to service all the men at a local fire department, unmarried or married. Some of the men even got in trouble and were suspended. 2 things. 1. My dad watches porn while myself or other family members, but not mom, are literally a few feet away. He thinks he's good at hiding it, but has sometimes literally pointed the screen partially my way so I can see it without realizing. The couches we sit on are next to each other but at different angles, think an L shape, and hurriedly closes his tablet when someone enters the room. Not exactly subtle. Dad also know what kind he's into cause he never used to delete his history on the old family computer, and I once had to help him download an app on his tablet. Typed in one letter into the search bar and up came a URL that I hastily pretended I didn't see. Creeps me the hell out. 2. How dangerously close my parents were to divorcing. Overheard them talking in the living room one night, my bedroom's downstairs, about how my mom apparently set up a different bank account without my dad's knowledge, how my dad won't be intimate with her anymore cause now he knows she doesn't want like it. I was devastated back then. Now, I kinda wish it will happen just cause of how damaged their marriage actually is. For Christmas my stepmom bought my dad a pretty cool custom sports jersey with the number 04. When my fiancé asked her what the number stood for, her reply was to represent our family, my 2 daughters, him and myself, completely leaving me out of the equation. Mom and dad always have XXX 3 times a week on Monday, Wednesday and Friday 7 p.m. or after work. That my mom and I make the same sounds when we climax. I really need to move out, and my parents really need to learn to close doors. When my dad died, the associate pastor of my mom's church spoke and talked about how devastating cancer is. That pastor used to attend a different church, but had to leave after she faked cancer for 2 years. Her husband left her and her daughter disowned her after they found out. My mom was the secretary at that church, so she knew and had already told me. And my dad's funeral was only like 2 years after that. I would have walked up to the podium and punched her in the face were it not disrespectful to my parents. Edit. It feels so good to get this off my chest. It happened 10 years ago, and I haven't talked about it to anyone except for my wife. I'm glad I'm not the only one who thinks this is shitty. me that my superior officer, who's a massive dick, is cheating on his wife of I think 15 years with the female patrol sergeant in our police department. I could literally ruin his life if I wanted to. Everyone basically hates him anyway, but still I haven't built up the nerve to face him. But if he's being a dick, I might tell him that I know that'll shut him up for a bit. My parents regret adopting me. There are often times I regret having had my children, but I still love them to pieces and would do anything for them. Parenting is really hard, and sometimes, when life is very tough on the kids, it's easy to say I should never have had them or to think somebody else would have done a better job of raising them. Please don't assume that they don't love you just because they've expressed regrets. It's more than possible that, like me, and a lot of other parents, they just need to vent sometimes about how it can feel like a mistake. All parents say this at times. Adopted and natural. I hope it hasn't broken your heart. I know what's in my mom's will. My brother gets almost everything 90%. I once kinda confronted her without letting on that I knew I was going to get that much less than him, and she said she would give him a larger share because he was weaker and not educated, whereas since I am educated, I was going to be fine even if I got nothing. I accepted it and moved on. Nothing is worth my family, man. My grandfather was self-made, gave my father nothing but an education. He gave the rest land and cows, and within less than a decade they were all destitute and begging from my dad. My father is self-made and he's given me an education. I will be self-made too. Just found out recently that my Gma, who I have taken care of for the last 7 years, doesn't want me to have a dime of the $100,000 life insurance policy she has, even though she would have been on the streets without me.